How can we help you, officer?
Dick Jones is wanted for murder.
This is absurd! That thing is a violent mechanical psychopath!
My program will not allow me to act against an officer of this company.
Serious charges. What is your evidence?
I had to kill Bob Morton because he made a mistake. Now it's time to erase that mistake. I had to kill Bob Morton because he made a mistake. Now it's time to erase that mistake. I want a chopper, now! We will walk to the roof, very calmly. I will board the chopper with my hostage. Anybody tries to stop me? The old geezer gets it. Dick, you're fired!
Thank you.
Sequel. Reboot. Which one will it be? It's the Ruined Childhoods podcast.
Greetings, Starfighters. This is Ruined Childhoods, and Dead or Alive, you're coming with us, though we have to assume that you're alive since you're listening to a podcast. I'm John, joined as always by my brother Dan. Dan, how's it going?
It's going all right, John. How are things over there?
Doing good. Have you been enjoying any good popular culture lately?
Oh man, have I
well,
been
good or bad? I should say.
I mean, have I just been enjoying any popular culture?
There you go.
Well, let's see. Outside of the RoboCop trilogy, well, you know, I think when we recorded our last episode, it was the eve of the series finale of Barry.
Oh, yeah.
Definitely watched that and
Love Barry. So
yeah,
good.
I mean, I'm usually, if I'm hooked into a series, here's the thing about me. Like, there's always a lot of, you know, it's like the final episode of a series, always, there's so much pressure. For me, if I'm hooked into the series and if I'm into this, if I'm like into the show, I will find the reasons why the series finale works.
Okay.
For me. And because it's just, I mean, like, I remember Sopranos and everyone was like, what was that? And I was just like, I don't know, it makes sense to me. And, you know, it's just organized crime will never end. It goes on and on and on and on. So don't stop believing.
What I really like about the show Barry, well, one of the
Yes.
things that I like about it a lot is that it brings you in the first season with a simple concept. A hitman who has become a hitman out of necessity has a job where he has to take out somebody who's an actor at an acting class, becomes completely over involved with this acting class and decides to rather pursue acting than killing. And it sets up a world with characters like Fuchs and NoHo Hank. Fuchs, Stephen Root, part of the RoboCop universe.
Yes. Yes.
But, you know, it shows you these fun, strange characters and the journey that the show brings you on over the course of, what was it, 3 seasons?
4
seasons. Over the course of 4 seasons, it takes you to a place where it's just like, all right, well, we got you with that premise, and now we're taking you somewhere really wild. And by the very end, it wraps things up in a way that is, I think, it could be satisfying for somebody who's a serious TV watcher, somebody who's maybe looking for more, you know, depth and meaning behind these character arcs. And it also works for somebody who's there for the performances and for the silly characters like NoHo Hank. So I thought that it was very effective. And the 4th season, I think, even though it had a much more serious tone than some of the other ones, had some of those moments in there that were just a real delight.
Yeah. Absolutely. And it didn't, I felt like there was still the comedy, but yeah, the fourth season took one of those, like, I feel like it's, I don't want to say textbook, but kind of like a, one of those, like, this is something you can do to make a season of your show interesting. And I don't want to say too much, but I was like, they did it. They took that, but I felt like they made it work, not so much like, all right, it's the fourth season, we need to change things up. What gimmick can we use? But like, what makes sense for this story and these characters? Yeah. And I think that what they decided to do made, a lot more sense, especially if you're trying to not just keep doing, same old, which it in that transition, what Barry did, similarly to, shows like Breaking Bad, I felt really took you where you look at a character in the last season and then you think of where they started out and you're like, wow, this person, they're not a totally different person. They are that person, but they are that person having grown and developed from the experiences that we've seen, and they might not have grown or developed in the case of Breaking Bad, grows and develops into, it's kind of a monster.
Yeah. And I did recently rewatch all of Breaking Bad because I caught up fully with Better Call Saul, and I was like, well, there's nothing left to do right now except go back to where it all started. And so we could talk certainly about Breaking Bad and Barry a lot longer, and we have.
I could tell you, so I haven't had a chance to get into any other pop culture, but I can tell you some things that are kind of on my radar. Kind of interested about Flamin' Hot.
What's Flamin' Hot?
Flamin' Hot is Ava Longoria's featured directorial debut, and it is about the invention of Flamin' Hot Cheetos.
Oh, right. Okay.
Yeah, I was thinking about showing it. For those who don't know, my day job, I'm a high school teacher, and, we're towards the end of the year, so movie days are kind of a thing while I'm like catching up on grading. So I was thinking of showing it, but that looks, it's kind of one of those, I feel like you got that one, you got the Bluetooth or BlackBerry movie right now that Yeah,
there's a lot of like nostalgia origin story things. Yeah. Well, also like, I don't know if this is
Tetris.
There's Tetris, but I don't know if it's happening or not, but Jerry Seinfeld's Pop-Tarts movie.
Oh, yeah, I saw something about that. Right? I heard something about that. Yeah.
Yeah, so that's a hot thing right now.
There's a series where I guess I wasn't that into the series Seinfeld, but I was like, not fond of that finale. But we're not here to talk about
that's a whole other thing. Oh yeah, Unfrosted, the Pop-Tart story. A Netflix film. Okay.
Yeah. They're all
a Netflix film that stars James Marsden, which brings me to my one more thing that I have for our Truman Show episode. I can't believe that I didn't mention, or that neither of us mentioned, the show Jury Duty that's on Freevee. Have you heard much about Jury Duty? Have you seen it?
No, there's a good reason why I didn't talk about it.
Oh, Dan, have you heard of it at all?
I think I've seen it come up on like things.
But you know what it is.
I know it's a show called Jury Duty, and I'm assuming it's not based on the Pauly Shore movie.
No, it's not. So it is, and I'm sure there are more eloquent ways of summarizing this, but it is I guess a documentary style reality show about a jury and the jury duty process, where everybody in it is an actor except for one person. And when I say actor, meaning they are playing somebody that's a participant in this documentary. The only person who's playing themselves is James Marsden, who's playing an elevated version of the egotistic celebrity James Marsden. But there is one guy named Ronald who thinks that he's just part of a regular documentary about the jury duty process. But all of these crazy things keep on happening. And he does not realize the extent to which he is being documented, and that his life is being followed, and that everything around him is being without him knowing, custom tailored to his experience. So it comes up a lot in the conversation about the Truman Show, because this is somebody who actually had, unbeknownst to him, a show about him. He went into it thinking that he was just one of many people who was part of this thing, including the judge, who was an actor, the bailiff, who was an actor. And lucky for them, this guy, Ronald, was, he's a star. He's amazing. He is seems to be the sweetest guy. At the time of this recording, nothing problematic has come out about him, but he seems to be the sweetest guy. And the way that he did everything was just perfect. And I highly recommend watching it. But ever since, I've seen a lot of interviews with him since it has ended and aired. And this guy, Ronald, has become just like an overnight celebrity. And he expresses the, concerns that he has every day, not knowing, like, how do I know this is my real life now, or if this situation is not a hidden camera situation in which I'm being followed? Like, it is a legitimate, if it were to be a case of the Truman Show, I forget exactly what they call it, but the actual fear that you're being, that you're part of a television show that's all about you, that's a hidden camera thing. But it's a legitimate concern for him. And he's talked about how he's like, he'll shoot a text over to like James Marsden and be like, hey, I'm doing this and I don't know, is this real? Like, and James Marsden is just like, everything is real. Everything it's done. There's no more. And so, it's I feel for the guy. That's a lot to take on, but I can't believe that I forgot to bring that up on the last episode.
Well, John, if we're going to bring up the example of jury duty as a very similar to the Truman Show, we also have to mention that it sounds like this is not also the first time that concept has been done, minus the jury duty aspect. I referenced the Joe Schmo Show.
The Joe Schmo
from
Show.
2003.
I was talking about this with somebody just the other day. Yeah.
So, again, a reality show. It was, a staged reality show where one person is not an actor and they think they're on a reality show and everybody else is an actor.
Yes. And that's got, David Hornsby, who's in Always Sunny, Mythic Quest, he was on there. Kristen Wiig was in it. Yeah. So, that was 2003. I mean,
it's funny because you look at the people on there. I think Lance Krull sounds familiar to me, but it's kind of like all of these people would not have been able to do this show a couple of years later. They would have been too recognizable. But 2003, they did 3 seasons, 03, 04, and then a third in 2013.
Oh, they did a third one. Yeah. Well, anyway, it's kind of amazing that there are these things, these examples like that, and taking place during a time of such social media hysteria. Jury duty was a big sensation on on TikTok and all over social media. It was, everybody just fell in love with this guy Ronald.
Yeah, cool. I'll have to check that out.
Yeah. And Dan, I wanted to mention a show that I actually just finished watching that we have talked about on this show when it was just being announced and when the trailer came out, but I watched the Fatal Attraction series.
Oh, how was it?
Have you not seen any of it?
I have not seen any of it.
Well, I went in very skeptical and I came out of it really enjoying what they did with it. What I felt they did right with it is they, because it's a series, it's hour-long episodes. I think there's maybe like 8 or 9 of them. And because it has the time to go in and give you more context for the Alex character, the femme fatale.
Yeah.
You get a little bit more background, a little bit of an explanation. You get to see some of her past experiences that have some questionable behavior. There were times where I liked Joshua Jackson in the Dan Gallagher role. There are times where I didn't so much care for him. And I think that just is because as a Dawson's Creek a guy who, grew up on Dawson's Creek, it's hard for me to see him in such
You just can't get your brain
roles.
off the creek, can you, man?
Yeah, I'm just living
What
on
about
that creek, man.
But do you have that same thing with Michelle Williams?
No, because she wasn't like a major. I don't know. I think that Pacey was more of a character, and Michelle Williams' character, I think it was Jen.
Yeah.
I don't know. She was more like, I don't know. She was.
Well, she was the bad girl, and Katie Holmes was the good girl. But it was the four of them.
But I think that Joshua Jackson, because before then it was Mighty Ducks, and I don't know, he was just like.
You didn't watch Fringe?
I did watch Fringe, but that was after
Fringe.
Dawson's Creek.
Yeah. But did you have the same problem during Fringe, or?
No, because that show was ridiculous. I think that because Fatal Attraction, it's a very dramatic, serious show. It takes a different tone. I will say that the end is very surprising. They took things in a very different direction. And I was like, really? Okay. All right.
Is that because you think like are they gonna continue it?
No. But I mean, they could. I don't see how they could, because it really is the story of, the death of Lizzie Kaplan's character, and I did really like Lizzie Kaplan in it. There were definitely some moments that she's bringing on the Glenn Close of it all, but there are also moments where she's giving it something different, and I really appreciated that. We've talked about how she has a more prominent career that makes more sense with the Dan Gallagher character. Like, there's more reason for them to be interacting. So I enjoyed it. I recommend it. It's just really fun.
Okay. And that actually reminds me, I just saw, I think yesterday, had not been aware that I think on Hulu is going to be a Full Monty.
Oh yeah,
series.
I saw that. Oh yes. Wait. One more thing. I have one more thing about the thing that I just mentioned. I will say also, Toby Huss is in it and is fantastic. I wouldn't say he's the Stuart Penkin, character, the Stuart Penkin character, which like who worked with Michael Douglas, but he plays like an investigator that's friends with Dan Gallagher. Toby Huss is in absolutely everything. He, for me, growing up, was already the strongest man in the world on The Adventures of Pete and Pete. But for a lot of other people, he's just in every single television show. He's in every single like prestige drama that's been released in the past 20 years.
He's definitely like, I just had to Google him, and as soon as I saw the picture come up, I was like, oh right, like I knew, and of course, and yes, definitely Pete and Pete, but a lot of other things as well.
Oh, he's fantastic.
Oh, yes, that guy. Oh, it looks like he's in White House Plumbers, something I've been meaning to watch.
Yeah, I haven't watched that either. It makes perfect sense that he'd be in something like that. Like I said, he's in every single. He's just that dude works, and I'm glad for it. But Dan, speaking of somebody who works, should we talk about that RoboCop guy, that Alex Murphy, went from one Alex to another?
Yeah. Let's yes. Just fatal. A fatal attraction to catching criminals. Does Alex Murphy have
a fatal attraction to upholding the law?
Upholding the law. A fatal attraction to justice.
Yeah, Dan. 1987. Paul Verhoeven making his U.S. directorial debut.
Yeah.
RoboCop.
Wow.
Dan, can I first tell you the lengths that I went through to watch? I mean, RoboCop is streaming on Prime right now, but
yes.
I've seen RoboCop enough. But what I haven't seen is what I have always heard was one of the better commentary tracks, which was the commentary track for RoboCop, not on like any of the Blu-rays or anything like that, but specifically the Criterion DVD that is out of print. So, yes. So I went to, in Portland, we have a video store called Movie Madness. They had a copy, but because I'd never rented from there before, I was unable to take it out because it's an out of print DVD. So what I thought was just going to be like a $200 deposit to be able to rent it. Instead, now they changed it so you have to like rent and return like 12 movies there. And I wasn't able to do that within 1 week. So what I ended up doing, and this is a pro tip for anybody out there who has a hankering for watching RoboCop with this specific commentary, somebody put it on YouTube, not the movie, just the audio commentary track. And so nice. I got it to sync up perfectly with the movie on Amazon Prime, and I had the audio going on YouTube, and it was perfect, and it was great, and I learned a lot of things, and I'll tell you some of those nuggets as we move along.
Interesting. Yeah, I'm checking to see because I have the 20th anniversary DVD, and actually, why is that I have like, I think it's the 20th, and it's like a double DVD. It's got the director's cut on it. Yeah. And I'm like, I didn't look. There is audio commentary on there, but it's a different one that they did for the Criterion edition. Oh, okay. So this one is like exclusive to Criterion.
It's Paul Verhoeven, Ed, is it Neumeier, the writer? Neumeier. Yeah. And I think the co-producer, whose name I'm blanking right now.
Davison, something like that.
I don't remember.
I remember it was close to John Davidson, who I randomly thought about earlier. Okay. John Davison was the producer who bought the script. It doesn't matter. It could have been Rob Botton who did the special effects. Anyway,
it was not. Anyway.
Yeah. Full disclosure, the only movie that I did not even rewatch part of in preparation was the original RoboCop because I have seen it so many times.
Do you remember the first time seeing it? Your first time seeing it, not anybody's.
My first time seeing it. Okay. I don't remember exactly my first time seeing it. I must have been a VHS rental. Mm-hmm. I definitely didn't see it in the theater because I was 9 years old. Although I remember being at summer camp. I remember being at day camp, at Yak Day Camp in Linden, New Jersey.
Don't look for it. Doesn't exist anymore.
That's right. That summer of 1987, if you're a fan of the show, you've heard us sing the praises of 1987's movies so many times. But I remember a kid, I remember his name, Jonathan Pichow.
Wow, shout out.
Shout out to John Pichow, who I guess family outing to the movies. They went to see RoboCop, and I remember he came back and was just telling us all about the scene. And this was, of course, because if you're a bunch of 10-year-olds, the scene where there
are two scenes I'm thinking of right now that it could possibly be.
It's almost definitely the first one.
The shower scene? Locker room scene?
Never mind. It's the second one.
Guy getting shot in the dick.
Guy getting shot in the dick, okay. Yes. But through the dress.
Yes.
That was the immersion. Through the dress, shoots the guy in the dick. And
we're gonna come back to that scene.
I'm sure.
At least once.
But I remember hearing about that and just being like, what is this? I don't know that I necessarily had a lot of interest in it, but I definitely saw it at some point, almost definitely on VHS, possibly HBO. I don't think it was one that I taped off. I don't remember having a VHS taped off HBO version.
So here, just going back a little bit to what you were just saying, I feel like summer camp, at least the type of day camp that we went to growing up, the vibe of it was very much at the beginning of the day, everybody in a group will huddle together and somebody will share something with the rest of the group that they're going to remember for the rest of their lives. It's just like sharing, when you're a kid, you first of all, you want to tell everybody about all of the fascinating things going on. And you're also so susceptible to suggestion and you're learning about so much. And, at like 9 years old, 10 years old, hearing about a movie where a robot, a cyborg cop shoots a bad guy in the dick, that sticks with you for life. You remember the kid's name. That's amazing. That's amazing.
Made an impact.
Yeah.
Sure did. And definitely, I mean, it was kind of like sold me on seeing the movie. That just wasn't, as a 9-year-old, that wasn't my speed. I mean, granted, I as a 9-year-old, I was also like, one of my favorite movies at that time were like Amadeus and La Bamba. So I guess maybe not the most typical 9-year-old, but still RoboCop was a bit much for me. But do you remember your first time seeing it?
No, I'm sure that I saw it plenty in probably the early 90s, when I would have been around 9 or 10, probably VHS tape or an edited for TV version of it on like USA or something, or whatever network would have been showing an Orion MGM picture. And it didn't stick with me, probably because it was most likely an edited for TV version where I missed all of the good stuff.
It would have only been like 10 minutes.
Yeah, it was like a 13-minute movie. Yeah, so and then certainly as I think probably on DVD, maybe early college was when I like actually saw it and was like, oh shit, this movie rules. And I think that especially when like Starship Troopers came out and I was seeing more Paul Verhoeven, it was like, oh yeah. And then of course RoboCop. And it's like, oh yeah. Because, RoboCop and Starship Troopers have a lot of similarities and they kind of work as companion films in a way.
Yeah. Similar themes, similar style.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And voice. Yeah. So
absolutely, yeah.
So why don't I go ahead and synopsize the first RoboCop film from 1987. In the year 2043, Detroit is undergoing some massive changes, mostly at the hands of mega corporation OCP. Their plans include, but are not limited to, recreating the entire city and rebranding as Delta City, and also replacing the police force with a mechanized option. OCP VP Dick Jones has plans for an entirely automated police bot. Sorry, my autocorrect changes to police bot called Ed 209. But when the prototype goes haywire and kills an OCP employee, power-hungry Bob Morton pitches his idea for a cyborg. All he needs is a volunteer to be the human counterpart. Lucky for him, local crime boss Clarence Boddicker and his goons have a fresh kill in their hands. Detroit cop Alex Murphy. Prior to his death, Alex was a family man and an honest cop, recently transferred to a new precinct and partnered with bubblegum-chewing toughie Ann Lewis. But now, Murphy is good only for parts as he becomes a key element of OCP's latest product, RoboCop. On the verge of a strike, the Detroit Police Department has no choice other than a contract with OCP, which puts Murphy back with his originating team. Operating on his own, Murphy follows his 3 prime directives: serve the public trust, protect the innocent, and uphold the law. But when he confronts one of the men who killed him, Murphy's memory is jogged. He is able to put the pieces together and uncovers his own personal truth. Murphy is now set on a new path to avenge his own death. How cool is that? What a cool premise.
It's an awesome premise, but it's, the synopsis, RoboCop is such a fantastic movie, and such a movie that has so much hidden beneath this like concept and this seemingly like, basic, like Dolph Lundgren cable movie.
Right.
Concept, all due respect to Dolph Lundgren, but there's so much, like Starship Troopers, so much satire,
Yes.
Commentary, humor, that it takes this story, which, it's an interesting story. It's a cool story.
Yeah.
But makes it so much more. And it's very prescient.
Yeah. Yeah, I wanted to just focus on a few things that I wrote down that I learned from the commentary, if you don't mind.
Oh, please do.
And I'm gonna try to find an order to these that makes sense. But it's actually Ed Neumeier, the Ed from Ed 209, named for him. Ed Neumeier was loosely inspired by, because at the time they were making Blade Runner, and he heard that it was based on Do Robots Dream of Electric Sheep by Philip K. Dick. And just the concept of Do Robots Dream kind of got him on this path about this cyborg. And there's kind of a split between Ed Neumeier and Paul Verhoeven about kind of what the meaning is behind all of this. They're kind of split between it being like fascism for liberals, or it's like, one was saying that it's like we shouldn't be afraid of technology incorporated with our lives, because we should just be embracing its inevitability. And even Ed Neumeier says it's also a sensitive cyborg with an identity crisis, but Verhoeven was saying that it's not an identity crisis, more that it's a sensitive cyborg who it's like he's figuring out what his purpose is, less of an identity crisis. And it was also just really interesting to hear, do you know why Paul Verhoeven was chosen to direct this?
I don't, honestly. I have not done my research.
Okay. They went through every director in America, and everybody turned it down. Nobody wanted to touch this. So they decided, well, let's go international. And they got all the way through the alphabet to the V's. Until Paul Verhoeven, who, did, he's from the Netherlands.
Netherlands, yeah.
Yeah. And, had done some work there and everything. And we see him in America now as this director who really goes heavy on the gore and the nudity. I mean, having done Showgirls, that's especially true. And when you hear him kind of talk about why he leans towards the gore, having grown up in the face of World War II, is right outside of his door, and kind of his ideals of especially for his futuristic movies like Starship Troopers and RoboCop, as like
Total Recall.
And Total Recall. It's like
Total Recall.
Yeah. Well, it's like we are past, the ideas of gender and body sensitivities, and we are evolved past that. And I don't know, it's just like when you hear him talk about it, it starts to make sense. But he's also just like a really engaging guy, and you can tell his perspective, from RoboCop alone, it's like, yeah, I trust this guy. I trust this guy for a satirical film about a privately owned police force. Right.
And it's so interesting. A few years ago, I believe the city of Detroit actually did declare bankruptcy. And and also I think what's really especially prophetic about the film, and part of the reasons, and I imagine this was covered in the commentary, I'm looking at it on Wikipedia, but that the producers wanted to move the setting from Detroit, but Neumeier insisted on keeping it Detroit because of anticipating the decline of the car industry. I guess it had already started, but
what they talk about on the commentary track that I found really interesting, and why they really wanted Detroit for this, is because after World War II, Detroit was the promise of industry. And it showed us what we could do, if we, pick ourselves up and, create automobiles and do all this stuff. And the reality was that they made garbage automobiles. Like, the American cars made in Detroit were shit compared to what was coming out of Japan or Germany. And and so it's a perfect example of, the promises made by, propaganda and, an entire country's, ideals of a future and an American dream that amounted to nothing and poor quality. And so it was kind of a perfect place to set a movie like this.
Oh no, I think it makes perfect sense. And also not to mention, you're trying to also now base it once again as the, forefront of technology and the, like Detroit's next, it's not going to be cars, it's going to be RoboCops.
Right. Yeah. Or Ed 209s.
Or Ed 209s, whatever type of robotic AI driven. Well, I guess, and that was, would it be out of place or out of line for me to jump to the 2014?
Go right ahead.
Okay, so the 2014 remake, I wouldn't call it a loose remake. It's definitely not like there is no Clarence Boddicker, there's no Dick Jones.
Yeah.
There's none of those characters, but the story of Alex Murphy being in this case, he's targeted by the crime lord.
Yeah.
He's not just moving into this tough district like he is in the original, where he I guess goes from a cushier precinct. He's kind of already there. He's already in it. So like Ed 209 at the beginning of the reboot or remake, Ed 209 is kind of like already a thing, and the whole concept, the controversy is that every other country is outsourcing law enforcement to OCP and getting Ed 209s, but the United States won't. And there's a senator, and he's saying, well, the machine doesn't have the humanity to make life and death decisions for another person.
Right.
Which is interesting because at my day job in the teaching, I've got students doing debates, and one of the debates was on AI development. And they were talking about, robotic doctors being like a very similar concern with robotic doctors. So they talk about that, and that's what gives the, owner, president, CEO of OCP in this, who's played by Michael Keaton, gives him the idea to take to create a cyborg.
Well, what's also interesting about the 2014 remake is that along with Michael Keaton's character, who's like an Elon Musk type, if we wanted to kind of categorize him like Jeff Bezos kind of person, is that along with him, you also have the Jay Baruchel character, who's a marketing executive. So a lot of this is a marketing move, and it has less to do with actually helping people and more to do with, pushing a product.
Is it just me, or is Baruchel totally doing Christian Slater in the he sounds and acts like Christian Slater?
Yeah, but he kind of does that all the time anyway.
I guess it's not quite as geeky. Like he usually does it like it's usually a geekier, and I haven't seen the BlackBerry movie, as I said, but yeah. And I also, what I like about this, so like the 21st century like reboots / franchises, I feel like there's just like this pool of credible older character actors that like, it's like you get 3 of them, and it's kind of like, and you can get Samuel L. Jackson is like, you get Samuel L. Jackson, you get 2 more. So they got Samuel L. Jackson in the new RoboCop as a right-wing TV host, Michael Keaton, as we said, Gary Oldman as the scientist,
who,
the conscience.
Right, but also, shows up in Dawn of the Planet of the Apes, playing kind of
Batman.
like, the Batman reboots.
Oh, I mean, Gary Oldman's like the reboot all-star.
Yeah, he's kind of taken the crown from like Steve Martin, you know, like he was just like on a tear doing remakes and reboots in the 90s and the early 2000s.
Yeah. No, it's you're rebooting it. You want to create a new franchise, which I mean, it didn't happen with this RoboCop, but I'm sure this
RoboCop, you know, nobody wanted it to happen. You know, this was one where, you know, this podcast is called Ruined Childhoods. It's because of the outcry that people say, like, this movie is going to ruin my child. This movie has ruined my childhood. And I think that, you know, you also mentioned Total Recall. So it's like the Total Recall remake, the RoboCop remake. Those were two that were just like, no one's asking for this. And I understand. I mean, I did like the RoboCop remake better than the Total Recall remake. And I will say also that there were things about the RoboCop, the 2014 RoboCop, that I did appreciate. I'm not typically a big fan of Joel Kinnaman, but I thought that he was fine. I thought that Jackie Earle Haley was fun. Michael K. Williams was good. Yeah. Also, I think that movie underscores a little bit better than the original RoboCop, the term that was mentioned earlier in the commentary that I was talking about, fascism for liberals. Because in the 2014 remake, it made me question, okay, a police officer who does not have bias, who does not have racism programmed, could that be a better way to serve the public trust than, you know, a human police force? And it was like, shit, that's fascism for liberals.
Exactly. Yeah. And I thought about that. But what's funny is also what I've been learning from all of like my students. And also I was chatting with a programmer yesterday just about like artificial intelligence and how it can get programmed in, because there was like Meta's chatbot that had made anti-Semitic comments.
Well, there was the Microsoft Bing one that was trying to get some guy to like leave his wife for it or something. There was like some wild thing.
There was the National Eating Disorders chatbot that was telling people to count calories and like really, but it's kind of like it does what you program it to do.
Right. Yeah.
So if it's thinking very logically and you're saying, oh, what should I do to lose weight? The logical, you know, computer response is
right.
Calories.
Now, Dan, you know, we're talking about the 2014 remake for RoboCop. I'm sorry. Yes. What's up?
I just wanted to add a comment about kind of my theory as to why these remakes didn't work or didn't work so well. I agree with you about the 2014 RoboCop, but it comes across as maybe a slightly like, you know, above average sci-fi action movie, whereas the original is, you know, revered as satire.
Yes.
Total Recall also, I don't think Total Recall goes as satirical, but Total Recall also has the same tone. And I think it's Verhoeven who puts such a stamp on those movies. I was just going to say
that too. What makes RoboCop work is Paul Verhoeven. It's his perspective that really, I don't know, the satire behind it. Because also, and not to get too far down the line, but like I watched the first episode of the RoboCop TV series, which was written by and also like co-EP'd by Ed Neumeier. And Dan, I'm not normally a napper, but I took a nice little nap during that because it didn't have the special sauce. It didn't have Paul Verhoeven. It was doing all of the things. It had all of the same elements, but it just didn't gel together.
Well, no. And if I need to back that up, if for anybody, Total Recall is the proof, because Total Recall wasn't yes, it was a remake, but it was a readaptation.
That's true.
Of the book or the story that Total Recall was. We Can Remember It For You Wholesale.
Yes.
That it was based on. And yeah, it's flashy, and it's what Len Wiseman directed that, or Wiseman, who directed Live Free or Die Hard.
Oh, right.
Yeah. So like, and it had the pedigree, and I think it hewed a bit closer to the original story. But again, Verhoeven, I pronounce the name, got to work on that there. He puts that stamp on it that you can't remake it. You're not going to get the same thing. You're not going to get the same effect.
Well, Dan, I want to mention a very special remake that does have a little bit of that Paul Verhoeven special sauce that was made in response to the 2014 remake. Dan, are you familiar with the, I guess you could call it a film, Our RoboCop remake? You're looking with blank stares right now. So I'm going to tell you, in 2014 or 2013, the website Channel 101, which you're familiar with Channel 101. So it's a sketch comedy video outpost where, they outsource their own content. It's not like you can just upload whatever, or maybe you can, but it's, more curated.
You used to, I don't know if you still can.
I don't know if it still exists anymore.
I mean, I remember back in late aughts, looking at it.
Yeah. So I think that Channel 101 was what brought you things like Yacht Rock. So there were people who actually had like a little bit of, panache behind what they were doing. And you would see people in their videos that were just like, oh, hey, isn't that the guy from X, Y, and Z? And so what they did is they found a whole bunch of sketch video creators to remake every single scene of the original Die Hard movie. And what became most well known about this remake, I mean, there's a lot of great directors. I mean, Eric Appel does a really great segment in it. I believe he does the scene where RoboCop's like being tweaked and you see it all through his like RoboVision, and there's like the New Year's party. And in this version, it's like this New Year's party just gets like really out of hand, and like John Gemberling shows up as just like this party guy who's just like, having a party, and it's like, what is this robot guy? Like, what's the deal? And there's a really funny segment, that's the scene where Murphy and Lewis are in the steel mill at the end, and they're like having a heart-to-heart, and he takes the like, the facade off, and you just see the like skin pulled back over the robotics, and it's Randall Park as RoboCop, and it's so funny. And he's like having Lewis like, take things off, and there's like an area where it's just like exposed brain or whatever. And then he's like, take off the back panel. And he's like, what's there? And she's like, and it's like a Sublime tattoo. It's so good. But what this is most well known for is what is, it's scene 27. And scene 27, Dan, is the scene where RoboCop makes his first bust, which is the rapists in the alley whose dick he shoots. And it was created by the comedy team Fatal Farm, which I know best from their work with Lasagna Cat, which is these amazing Garfield-themed videos, one of which is a 5-hour-long, like 10 years in the making, really bizarre. I can't even begin to explain it, but it's, if you look up Fatal Farm, Lasagna Cat, it's absolutely thrilling. And they've gone on to do a lot of commercial work and television work. I think they did some stuff for I Think You Should Leave, the Tim Robinson show, and they did like Old Spice commercials that with Wyden and Kennedy, and they directed this very high production value version of that scene in RoboCop that is so goddamn funny. It starts off the same exact way. There's this woman with this like, curly blonde hair, and these guys they're threatening to cut the hair and then, go under her dress and cut the hair. And then RoboCop shows up, and it's actually like, I think what I hear is they hired an actual like RoboCop, like career, like RoboCop impersonator. So he sounds very much like Peter Weller, and he has like a actual suit that he made that's like, film equivalent essentially. And he shoots the guy in the dick and then two other rapists show up with another woman. And one of them has his pants down and a like prosthetic penis. And RoboCop shoots that guy in the dick. And all of these guys come up with their exposed genitalia, and you see them all like squibbed out and whatever, getting shot and like blood pouring out. And it's so, Dan, it is so good. I'm going to link to the video in the episode's description.
Yes.
You can watch the entire thing on Vimeo, but scene 27 is groundbreaking. I remember being sent this, years and years ago, and every now and then it pops up again, and it's so good. It's and it's just like it brings things to a screeching halt when you're watching it, because some of them are like some directors like do like crude animation for some of the scenes, and then like you get to this scene and it's like wildly different from all the others. And it's like, whoa, they just absolutely went for it. And each one, they use different actors in all of the scenes and everything, but it just works. And it's, it's very silly and a lot of fun. So that was in response to the 2014 remake being made. They're just like, well, why don't we just do it? And here's what we got. And it's so good.
Nice. I'll have to check that out.
Yeah.
That sounds funny. Oh man. All right. Yeah. So the original RoboCop, like groundbreaking. I made money, like, for a hard R sci-fi action
Very
movie.
hard R. Yeah.
Made good money, and I think it's only like grown in its appreciation since 1987.
Well, what's amazing about it is that it's an R-rated movie that I mean, this could never happen now. But like, it's an R movie that kids are talking about at summer camp at 9 years old or whatever. And it's a total like lunchbox action figure movie, Halloween costume movie. Like
it becomes maybe not right away.
Well, does that bring us to RoboCop 2?
I think it brings us to RoboCop 2.
Okay.
I just wanted to get, I'm like, wait a second, when did the RoboCop cartoon start? I want to say that was after RoboCop 2.
1988.
Oh, so
yeah,
before RoboCop 2.
Yeah, and it aired as part of the Marvel Action Universe programming block. So I'm wondering if it, came on the heels of the comics. Which, oh no, the comics started in 92.
Okay.
There was a 1987 black and white magazine adaptation of the film. Anyway, so yeah, RoboCop 2, which is 1990. Then you have, so RoboCop 1, it really brought on the, the animated series.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Well, I mean,
probably because it was just like, hey, this is something. Let's make a kids thing fast.
Yeah. I guess so. Wow. Yeah.
So RoboCop 2, this one, it's written by Frank Miller, who a lot of people know as the libertarian comic book guy. Directed by Empire Strikes Back's Irvin Kershner. Shall I synopsize?
Go right ahead.
It's official. The Detroit police have gone on strike, and the only scab in sight is RoboCop. And its creator, OCP, continues to have the city of Detroit in its sights with their Delta City aspirations at an all-time high. And in the wake of it all, a new drug called Nuke has hit the streets, and Kane, the drug's manufacturer, is nothing but bad news. And in a turn of events, Kane ends up working with OCP in the form of the next gen of RoboCop called RoboCop 2, which, by the way, I thought was really funny that they just called it RoboCop 2 in the movie RoboCop 2.
Yeah. I mean, I couldn't remember any other. I'm like, I know that there's other examples of that, but I could not remember off the top of my head, like those examples. But like the one that keeps coming to mind, and I know it's not exactly that, is Ghostbusters 2, but that's I don't think
because the ghost is holding up a tube.
Yeah, but they didn't change it like in the movie.
Yeah, they did.
They did?
Yeah.
They did? Okay. I thought I remembered that they did, and I was like, no, they couldn't have.
But something to remember about Ghostbusters 2 is that so much of it was modeled off of the Ghostbusters animated series, the real Ghostbusters.
The real Ghostbusters, yeah.
So that's why Ghostbusters 2 is way more cartoony, is because it's really a blend of the first and the cartoon.
Yeah. Well,
anyway.
no one can accuse RoboCop 2 of being cartoony.
No, RoboCop 2, it's definitely, it's lost that special sauce with Irving Kershner, and it just is, it doesn't have it's not as fun. It's not as fun. You know, RoboCop has like a weird purpley suit. I don't know, like the sheen is a little bit different.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It felt like they were trying to force something that just didn't fit.
Well, I'll tell you
Didn't work.
something that I did like about it was Tom Noonan as Kane.
Okay. Yes.
He's so good. I mean, when he comes on screen, you just absolutely love him. He's completely underutilized in this.
Completely. Big Tom Noonan fan.
Oh, yeah.
And of course, you and I think, first came to know Tom Noonan as Frankenstein in the Monster Squad.
Yeah, I think without knowing it, that's how I first came to know him.
But I remember seeing the name okay.
I think that
there's your RoboCop connection.
Well, I think that Last Action Hero was maybe the first time that I saw him for like who he was.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Kind of somewhat of a similar character here.
Yeah, just a thug, although he's more articulate in RoboCop 2.
But I agree, so underused, especially when he becomes RoboCop 2.
I know. Yeah, you've got that weird like lawnmower man visualization of his face.
Oh, it was so Lawnmower Man.
I thought that the visual of like his spine and brain and eyeballs was really cool, where it's just like, we've got the essence of this guy. And the whole like nuke thing was pretty wild. That kid who's like the little crime boss kid is he's fun. I think he was in Newsies.
Oh yes, that's where I recognized him from. Yeah, no, I liked him. That whole thing, like, I can't shoot a kid, can you? Like, right. I thought that there was like a lot of potential.
Gabriel Damon.
Yes. No relation to Matt.
None to our knowledge.
No. But I even remember, the ad campaigns for RoboCop 2, and I'm going to get to one of the marketing stunts that they did in a moment because it's tremendous. But I remember the posters just really sucked, and it was like just RoboCop's head on like the purple background, or the other poster is like just him like walking through a wall.
Yeah, exactly, like Kool-Aid Man style.
Exactly, yeah. But I think my favorite, and I did not see this at the time, but it has come to my attention since, my favorite promotion for RoboCop 2 occurred on a pay-per-view for World Championship Wrestling.
God. Oh, I heard about this.
Yes. So World Championship Wrestling, which was not at this time, but at for a few years in the late 90s, it was actually bigger than what was at the time WWF. And this was slightly before that. So we have Capital Combat in May 1990. Mm-hmm. And basically what happened, so there is a wrestler called Sting, and there was a segment, and the bad guys, the Four Horsemen, locked Sting in a cage, and then RoboCop comes out and chases off the Four Horsemen and releases Sting. So this was the
marketing stunt.
And one of the worst. It's just known, in professional wrestling is just one of the worst debacles.
I heard about this because I was listening to an episode of the Action Boys podcast. I'm a Patreon subscriber to only 2 podcasts, and that is one of them. And they did an episode on RoboCop 2 and talked about that. And I don't know, Dan, have you ever listened to Action Boys?
Yes.
Okay. So for anybody who's unaware, first of all, if you want to hear a podcast just about action movies, it's worth the $5 a month to subscribe to the Patreon to hear it. You can hear some episodes for free on the High and Mighty podcast, but it's John Gabris, who has been on this podcast before, talking about Double Impact, with Ben Rogers and Ryan Stenger. And before listening to that podcast, I did not know who the two of them were. Of course, I knew John Gabris. And for me, I feel like the funniest person in any room that John Gabris is in is John Gabris. Except when he's doing Action Boys, he is like, I feel like I can sit back with him and enjoy the show that is happening with Rogers and Stanger. And I mean, the three of them together are absolute genius, and listening to them talk about RoboCop 2 and the wrestling marketing stunt and all those things is just pure joy.
It's quite something. Yeah. If you ever have a chance to check it out on YouTube, RoboCop rescues Sting. I mean, it's like, you know, the whole thing with pro wrestling is, yes, we know that it is that the endings are predetermined. You know, we
It's
know
entertainment.
that it's stage, it's characters, it's entertainment, but you want to be able to, you know, suspend disbelief. You want to get into it. And as a wrestling fan, it's like you want the show that you're watching to be at the level where you forget that and you're just into the performance. When you have RoboCop come out.
Okay, here's the way that I'd like to think about it. Dan, you have talked about it before. You're talking about this episode. You are a wrestling fan.
Yeah.
I'm not a wrestling fan. However, if I am to watch professional wrestling, the way that I like to think about it, and this RoboCop marketing stunt is a perfect example. Just imagine that every single person that comes out is being held by a 10-year-old's gigantic hands, and they're just action figures that are being played with by a 10-year-old, and everything makes sense. And it's just, they're being bashed together and they're doing all these crazy stunts and they're throwing tables at each other. And then all of a sudden RoboCop is there and everything just starts to make sense. Just imagine
and that is how a non-fan describes professional wrestling.
It's not how you describe it. It's how you can appreciate it if you are in a situation where you are watching it that maybe you didn't choose to watch it.
Okay.
Yeah. Because it makes a lot of it make a lot of sense. Anyway, I am not in any way mocking wrestling because I absolutely see the art in it. It's just a matter of like, not all art is for everybody.
No. I'm not saying that. I'm like, yeah, no, the RoboCop thing is hilarious. It's hilarious because you already have that going on.
Yeah.
Like you do have performers on this very same show who like are called the Road Warriors and dress as though they are from that movie. So you're already there.
Yeah.
But yeah, the whole RoboCop, and it's still, I don't know that it has ever been, like, some people say that it was Peter Weller who did it.
Oh, yeah.
Others say that it wasn't. I'm pretty sure, like, Sting himself has said that it was Peter Weller, but I also don't know if that was, like, part of the deal. Like, you have to say it's Peter Weller. Because I don't know what Turner might have had some association with that, because it was a Turner... Turner on WCW. Anyway, RoboCop 2, doesn't have the satirical flair. It kind of tries to take on, issues.
They try to blend in all of the, like, the news breaks and the same styles, but yeah, it misses that satire quite a bit and tries to play it as more of a straight action movie where the protagonist happens to be a cyborg.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so then the antagonist also has to become a cyborg.
Now, I will just going back to the RoboCop series, because I watched I watched a little bit of it.
Oh, yeah?
I will say I found that they kind of went for the tone a little bit more, and I have that they were they mentioned someone going to the Henry Ford home for the morally challenged.
Yeah.
I thought, I was like, I chuckled at that, and then I think 5 minutes later I turned it off. But
I thought it was just trying really hard to hit those moments, and it became a little too obvious.
I just thought that was such an intelligent joke for that. I was caught off guard.
It felt very like Zucker Brothers, or even If Looks Could Kill, Edsel High School.
Yeah.
A little silly.
So let's talk about RoboCop 3.
Let's talk about. So prior to recording this episode, you said that RoboCop 3 was the only one that you hadn't seen.
Correct.
So I'll do a little synopsis, then I'd love to hear what you thought about it.
Yes.
OCP continues its ruthless corporate takeover, leaving the city on a verge of collapse. As crime and corruption run rampant, a brave group of rebels, including the intelligent and resourceful Nico, stands up against OCP's tyranny. Meanwhile, RoboCop, armed with enhanced weaponry and a renewed sense of justice, and later on a jetpack, joins forces with the rebels. Together, they wage a relentless battle against OCP's forces, fighting for the soul of Detroit and the freedom of its citizens. So what'd you think?
It was an improvement from RoboCop 2.
So, came out in 1993. This one, also written by Fred Miller, however, along with its director, Fred Decker of Monster Squad. We've talked about him before. We talked about him recently. I forget because he was a writer on If Looks Could Kill. That's right.
Right. Yes.
That's the connection. Fred Decker, always a lot of fun. And I thought that this one was really good. It kind of went back to the heart of RoboCop, and I should say Alex Murphy. He definitely has more of the Murphy coming out in this one. Yeah. Like I said, he got Stephen Root. This one actually has like a really fun cast because you also have Rip Torn.
Yeah. Rip Torn's in it. I was a little like disappointed, I think, because I was just hoping for the Rip Torn. Like when I think of Rip Torn, I think of Artie from Larry Sanders and also his character in Defending Your Life.
Defending Your Life, definitely, which was right around the same time as this.
91.
Yeah.
In this, he's doing more of, I guess doing a different character. He's a little more like, Weasley and not as.
Speaking of Weasley, we also have Bradley Whitford, who is referred to as a weasel in Billy Madison a year later.
Oh, yeah.
Like I said, Jeff Garland is the donut guy. Oh, just so good. Oh,
yeah, CCH Pounder.
CCH Pounder. Who doesn't love CCH Pounder? I forgot. We didn't mention earlier the brilliance of Clarence Boddicker. Kurtwood Smith in the first RoboCop.
Well, yeah, we didn't really talk about the cast of the first RoboCop. Maybe let's talk about RoboCop 3, and then also this is a good opportunity because here we have a different actor playing RoboCop.
Yes,
because Peter Weller wanted to be in the film adaptation of Naked Lunch and campaigned hard for that role, and and they couldn't work out the schedules, although he wanted to do RoboCop 3. But schedules are schedules, and Robert Burke had to step in and not be as good. Yeah. You know what, though, I thought the villain, so they have these, like, was it the rehabs? These, like Gestapo that basically, these stormtroopers that come in and like clear out poor neighborhoods and take poor people away to like death camps. It's not really specified, but they get taken away. Now the leader of those guys, I forget what the character's name was.
McDaggett.
Yeah. So,
played
now
by John Castle.
And every time he was on screen, it felt to me like his performance was a Rob Hubel character from Human Giant. Like, I would like, and not just because the face, like he kind of looks like Rob Hubel, but I was like, I could see Rob Hubel doing that character as a character.
That's pretty funny. Yeah, I could see that. That's pretty good.
But yeah, RoboCop. Yeah, Robert Docuy coming back as Sergeant Reed, the RoboCop's boss.
Yeah.
Who's great. Yeah, Nancy Allen's back for Lewis to play Lewis.
Yeah.
RoboCop 3 was a lot of fun. PG-13, more kid-oriented, which is why I thought that the cartoon didn't start until after RoboCop 2.
Yeah, you have a kid protagonist, or a kid that's part of the protagonist team.
Who's not a drug dealer.
Who's not a baddie.
Yeah.
And really, really a sweet story. I don't know. It worked for me. I was entertained the entire time. It definitely had I hope I get the, is it Conquest for the Battle of the Apes? Conquest for the Planet of the Apes vibe? Is that the one where there's the uprising? Anyway. Battle for the Planet of the Apes? I guess Conquest is the one where they're already more intelligent apes. Anyway, the one where there's the uprising. I kind of got some of those vibes. It's good. I liked it.
Had like Running Man, had some like Running Man vibes with the waiting for Mick Fleetwood to come out as the head of the Resistance.
I thought that this one, and maybe it's the Fred Decker of it all, the connection between the Frankenstein's monster and the kid, that kind of connection. Man, really works.
No Tom Noonan though. If only Fred Decker could have directed RoboCop 2.
I know. Oh, if only. Yeah. And it's so funny because Irving Kershner, it's like you think of him as directing some of what some people think of as like the greatest science fiction movies of all time. And
what else? Didn't he do like feel like he did a Bond film? I think he maybe
Irving Kershner
Never Say Never Again.
Which one was it? Yeah, Never Say Never Again. So Empire was 80, 83 was Never Say Never Again, and 1990 was RoboCop 2.
Yeah, and then we talked about the remake already.
We talked about the remake, the animated series, the comic books, which started at Marvel, went on to Dark Horse Comics, which is based out here in Portland, Oregon. I think that it's a shame that the RoboCop remake in 2014 didn't deliver, because it did have so much potential. I think that, Michael Keaton, Gary Oldman, Samuel L. Jackson, like it could have gone so right, but it just didn't.
Interesting footnote about that movie is that I saw it in the theater, and it was the last movie that my wife and I saw in the theater before our daughter was born.
Oh, no way.
She was quite pregnant when we saw that.
The first time that I saw the RoboCop 2014 remake was when I had first moved to Portland. I was in a house I was in my new house at the time, zero furniture in it, waiting for somebody to come do some work in a time window that was nebulous, but I had no furniture or anything. So I sat on the stairs and on my phone watched the 2014 RoboCop remake.
Wow, that is. I'm like, and I saw it in IMAX.
The opposite of IMAX.
Opposite.
IMAX. Yeah. By the way, there's a couple of other things that I forgot to mention from the RoboCop commentary that I wanted to talk about. So in RoboCop, there's a scene where the OCP VP who developed RoboCop gets killed by Clarence Boddicker, Kurtwood Smith's amazing character.
Yes.
And the doorbell tone is Beethoven's Fifth.
Yes.
Which is supposed to elicit the idea of death knocking at your door. Uh-huh. I'd never picked up on that before. I loved that. And I also I love this fact. So of the core directives for RoboCop, the first is serve the public trust. Do you want to know where they got that from?
No, where?
A fortune cookie. Isn't that great? That was
That's
just a fortune and a fortune cookie, and they're just like, hey, RoboCop's directive. Yeah. So
I have a question. Did they mention also like the Beethoven's fit? That's dun 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 dun.
Yeah.
Also, is the doorbell in A Clockwork Orange at the writer's house? Yeah. Which is, and now that I think about it, I never made that connection, but this is the scene in the writer's house where, Alex and his gang come in and
should have been shot in the dick.
Yes, should have. Which one? He had one on his nose. It's kind of it's almost, someone coming in and, violence and wreaking havoc. And in Clockwork Orange, it made sense because the character of Alex is a Beethoven fanatic. But that's interesting. I feel like I knew that at some point about the doorbell, but forgot about that. That's such a great touch.
Yeah.
Also, Miguel Ferrer, we didn't mention him, but man, I love him in this movie.
He plays
because
Bob.
He's so that like that very much that 80s yuppie.
Yeah.
Just trying to get ahead, and they're totally lampooning that culture too, especially in the scene where ED-209 kills the employee who's up there, and really the response is just like the old man Dan O'Herlihy of Last Starfighter fame,
right?
He's just kind of like rolling his eyes and like again, and everyone else is just everyone else is like, oh, this is unpleasant. No one's going to need trauma counseling or anything from watching someone brutally, graphically, violently murdered in front of them. So I thought that was another really interesting stuff. But Miguel Ferrer he's so weaselly and full of himself. Like when he's talking shit about Dick Jones.
One time I called someone asshole. I just love that line. That whole bathroom scene is great, and it's really well done in our RoboCop remake.
Oh, can't wait. So
there's a scene where he's just like taking a shit in the sink, I think. I don't know. Anyway, it's great.
Anyway, while we're on that scene, gotta shout out Ronnie Cox playing Dick Jones.
Oh yeah.
And then he also he comes back for Total Recall with
that's right. Yeah.
Verhoeven. But Ronnie Cox, great. I'm trying to remember. God, what's the other? There's like Deliverance. I'm trying to remember. Beverly Hills Cop. That's the. That's the movie where I'm like, yes, that's what I associate him with. That and RoboCop. But he's wonderful in it. Nancy Allen.
Yeah.
Up to this point, mainly like kind of Brian De Palma's.
Sure.
She, in a bunch of Brian De Palma movies. I definitely.
Yeah, well, got her start in a movie that I really like. I mean, Hal Ashby's The Last Detail.
Oh, yes. Nancy Allen, and I've always been. I think I've grown to appreciate her performance in this. I've never felt she fit.
Yeah, I think that it's good in the first one, but in the subsequent films, she loses me a little bit.
Yeah, it's too much. I kind of want to like download the script and search and see how many times her character says Murphy.
Yeah. Well, geez, that'll take you a long time. The amount of times that even that name is mentioned at all.
Well, yeah.
But yeah, so for De Palma, back to back was in Home Movies, Dressed to Kill, and then Blowout. I liked her a lot in Blowout.
Well, she Carrie. Carrie as well.
Well, Carrie, right? That is De Palma. Yeah.
I think she was.
But I was saying that, Home Movies, Dressed to Kill, and Blowout were all made probably within the same year. Carrie was 76.
Oh yeah.
But I worked with Zemeckis and Spielberg between those.
Oh right, she was in 1941.
1941 with Zemeckis and I Want to Hold Your Hand. Yeah, I worked with a lot of really great directors. And yeah, I don't know. I think that, she was in so much. She's still, I guess, kind of acting. I think that right now, I guess the latest thing that she's been doing are just documentaries, talking about science fiction films and things like that.
Mhm.
So, but 2012 was, I guess she was a narrator. That was a documentary. 2008 with a movie called My Apocalypse that was filmed in 97. Weird.
Okay.
Starring, guess who stars in My Apocalypse?
So it was filmed in 1997.
You're never going to guess.
Do I get a hint?
Yeah, you're going to get a hint that's going to give it away. This guy can't lose.
Corin Nemec.
It's Corin Nemec, yeah.
Yeah, I almost just said Parker Lewis.
No, it's Parker Lewis. Yeah, it's Kubiak.
That guy went on to have a huge career, Kubiak.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Yeah. ER.
Yeah, I'm
Big time.
wondering. I'm like, why not? Because I'm like, I could definitely see Nancy Allen, doing TV. Which, I mean, man, these days you look at shows.
Not a lot of television for Nancy Allen. I mean, she was in Another World in the 80s, but then did like one-off episodes for things like Touched by an Angel, Outer Limits, The Commish, Law and Order SVU.
I mean, why can't put her in a season of The White Lotus or something? She's got to be.
I wouldn't be surprised if she just showed up and it's just like, is that Nancy Allen?
She's the type of actor who gets cast in shows like that where she's like, oh yes, she's back. Nancy Allen. RoboCop, she did RoboCop 2, RoboCop 3.
Oh, okay. This is from her Wikipedia. Allen stepped back from acting in 2008 and became involved in cancer support after her friend Wendy Jo Sperber died of breast cancer. In 2010, she was named executive director of the We Spark Cancer Support Center in Los Angeles.
Okay. I know Wendy Jo Sperber. I remember
who
Wendy
was
Jo
also
Sperber.
in I Want to Hold Your Hand. Zemeckis, Back to the Future.
You're right. She's his sister in Back to the Future.
Mhm.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I remember. Okay. All right. Okay. Well,
So
good.
there you go.
All right, Nancy Allen.
Yeah.
Mad respect for Nancy Allen.
Mad respect.
All right. Yeah. So, all right. John, what are we going to do with RoboCop? Oh, hold on a second. I'm sorry. But before we move on, did you watch the credits for RoboCop 2?
I don't remember why.
Okay, you got to go back and just listen to the ending credit music. It's amazing because it's like the dramatic music, but then they bring in the operatic choir of singers going like RoboCop. It's hilarious.
Do not remember that.
Oh,
I must have turned it off before that.
Check. That would be in my remake of RoboCop 2.
All right, so here's my idea. So for those who are first-time listeners, first of all, on this show, we like to talk about these cult and classic movies and how we would bring them back if we were given total fuck you money to just do whatever we wanted with a movie like RoboCop. So my idea, it's a present-day sequel to the original series, and the plot is as follows. OCP's vision for Detroit and Delta City has failed, and Detroit has been thriving. During an audit of Detroit's municipal storage facilities, Police Academy recruits uncover a dust-covered, totally deactivated RoboCop. One of the recruits sees it as an interesting project and takes it home. After making some tweaks, RoboCop gets turned on and is ready to serve the public trust. But since he's property of OCP and not the police, he is unable to act on his instincts. But with his embedded knowledge and instincts, he has a relentless drive to be a cop. The only option is for RoboCop to rejoin the police academy and climb the ranks the old-fashioned way. And no, Dan, I am not suggesting that it is a police academy movie also.
Dang.
But I think that, and first of all, Peter Weller, I think that getting Peter Weller back would be great. Peter Weller, I'm sure he's been in stuff more recently, but I know he was in the second Star Trek movie of the most recent batch. And he was great in that, doing his Peter Weller thing. Although he was not a great dude in that one. And Star Trek Into Darkness.
Oh, Star Trek Into Darkness. Okay, Yeah, I
one
saw
with
it. I don't remember him. Oh, shit. You know what? Now that reminds me what other movie I was watching recently that wasn't a RoboCop movie, and this is why I was watching it, Buckaroo Banzai.
Oh, yeah, Buckaroo Banzai. That's, classic Peter Weller. Yeah, and so I feel like if, it perfectly explains why Peter Weller would have aged. If he's just sitting in a storage unit, you're not being taken care of, then sure, there's going to be some sort of aging process that happens. So, I mean, there's nothing better than that RoboCop Peter Weller voice.
I agree with that. So that's basically the thing, is that like RoboCop goes into the police academy.
Well, he needs to be completely deprogrammed because he's property of OCP, and theoretically they probably don't exist anymore, or maybe got bought and sold by so many other companies that they don't even have the same, anything that they had before. So in order for him to do anything that he's capable of doing, kind of needs to go through the process the only way that's legal.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know. I think that'd be kind of neat, and it's less a story of crime fighting and things like that, and it's probably something that's got a little bit more personality to it, something that's more of an interpersonal story rather than a story about I mean, I'm sure there can be some police corruption or something like that he uncovers, or who knows, but. That's what
okay. So, or there could be the rival academy, and like one of the academies is going to get shut down. RoboCop has to help keep the academy open by winning the competition.
Or we use it as a marketing tool. I guess that's kind of the plot of Captain America: The First Avengers. It just becomes a propaganda tool. But
yeah.
Anyway.
Well, John, speaking of marketing tools, I feel like the one venue that's been left, the one door that was opened that never fully explored. Well, here we are. It's 2023, and wouldn't you know it, the man they call Sting is still wrestling for All Elite Wrestling.
Is he?
And yes. And, it feels like he's kind of moving away from his current, tag team partner, Seattle's own Darby Allin.
Okay.
And, I feel like this is the perfect opportunity to bring RoboCop in and, get some payoff from 1990. I'm kidding. That's not my idea.
Oh, it could very easily have been your realistic.
Well, as I'm saying it, I'm like, that's probably the best, the best idea. I was kind of thinking about it, and first, I feel like anime is a format that would really suit the RoboCop story. And I don't know how much you would, kind of revamp it, revise it so that it doesn't necessarily have to be the same. It doesn't have to be the story of Alex Murphy, devoted dad, and good cop. But I feel like I feel like that anime style, and I think of like Akira, especially like there are images from Akira that come to mind. I'm just like, that would be a really cool, like a series, and with him and have bring Boddicker into it. You could have Kurtwood Smith do the voice. Still,
could you have a special appearance by TJ Laser?
Oh, of course you would have TJ Laser in it, and yes, TJ Laser's the best. I don't know. That's just kind of what I was thinking was, why not revive it as a series with, in that style, animes.
Yeah.
And,
Yeah, no, I think that's a cool idea.
Very popular. It doesn't necessarily have to take place in Detroit. I think it could be Delta City. You could just call it Delta City.
Sure. Yeah.
Whatever it is, I felt like thinking about all of the different options. I mean, personally, I would love to see the original RoboCop in the theater.
Yeah.
would love to get some sort of re-release, or every now and again they'll it'll play at some type of revival house.
Oh,
but
of course. Yeah.
Those, it's like impossible for me to make it to any of those. So I would love that. There was going to be we shouldn't sign off before mentioning the plan. Was it RoboCop Returns? That was kind of the planned sequel that I don't think is happening any longer, but the big screen sequel that was intended to pick up after the original RoboCop and just kind of drops everything else from the storyline. Nuke, Rip Torn, everything is gone, and then they were going to do just a direct sequel to it. So,
well, there is an article on looper.com that was written in April of this year, so not that long ago, that alludes to the idea that it's not, out of the picture. I'm just going to go ahead and read from this. RoboCop Returns has been in the pipeline for a long, long time. In fact, it was intended to be the immediate follow-up to the classic, blah, 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 blah. However, getting a movie made is an incredibly difficult process, and multiple issues eventually sank the project back in the day. I'm going to skip ahead a little bit. Neumeier minor screenplay, which is RoboCop: The Corporate Wars, began picking up steam again in 2016. Right when Trump was about to be elected president, MGM president John Glickman called and said, "Do you actually predict in your sequel script that a reality star would run for president and win?" We had. This finally got the ball rolling, with both Neumeier and Miner coming aboard as producers, although we're still not sure when the film will actually start shooting. As of August 2020, the film hadn't been given the official go-ahead from MGM. When Sci-Fi asked Neumeier if there was a formal green light, he responded, "No, we're still trying to get a script right." Since then, there haven't been a lot of updates. So it's not dead. It's just, who knows?
Stagnating.
Yeah.
I guess. Yeah.
In July 2018, it was announced that Neil Blomkamp would direct RoboCop Returns.
Oh, okay.
The South African filmmaker who brought us District 9 and Chappie.
And Elysium, right?
And Elysium, yeah, but
he did Elysium,
yeah, but why not bring up Chappie if you're going to bring up two?
Well, I don't know.
Yeah, so
I feel like Elysium had a bit of a higher profile.
Did it?
Yeah. Jodie Foster and Matt Damon. It was a summer
Yeah,
release.
but it totally shit the bed. Chappie at least was
Did it?
Everybody knew it was going to be ridiculous. Let's see. In August 2019, Blomkamp tweeted, "Off RoboCop. I'm shooting new hard. Blah 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 blah. Can't wait. Need to shoot RoboCop now. Excited to watch it in theaters with other fans." Okay, so maybe he's not part of it anymore. Yeah. Anyway, there's I'll include the link to this Looper article so everybody can read up on all of the RoboCop Returns news. Maybe it'll happen, maybe not. We'll see. Maybe they'll listen to this podcast and be like, "Ooh, I like that idea. I'm going to do that." Back to Police Academy.
I would honestly,
yeah.
I would kind of rather see that. Like I love the original RoboCop. I don't necessarily need to see anything more of this direction. I feel like the Police Academy.
The original RoboCop will always exist. It'll always be great, and no new movies, even if it's the 2014 remake, will ever change that. So enjoy what you want to enjoy.
I shall. Okay. So
do you want to tell everyone what we're doing on our next episode?
For our next episode, we are going to be taking a look at another film involving the tragic loss of our hero, who yet still remains to guide us through the film to the light. And I am talking, of course, about 1990's Ghost.
So excited, Dan.
We're going to get crazy for Swayze again.
We're going to get crazy for Swayze. It's going to be awesome.
Whoopi for Whoopi. Yeah. And Demi for Demi. I don't.
Yeah, it will be kind of. Yeah, it means kind of so. I'm excited. Ghost is a classic. I'm sure we'll have a lot of fascinating takes on that classic. Dan, as you are riding off in RoboCop 3's jetpack, I wish you a good journey.
Good journey.